and environmental finance at the African Development Bank. And I would like to start by inviting my Vice President, Dr. Kevin Kariuki, to take the floor to make some welcoming remarks. And then we will hear from a series of speakers and panelists, and perhaps the Principal Secretary from the Kenyan government if he arrives. But let me hand over to Dr. Kevin Kariuki. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gareth. I think that my fellow panelists are virtual, so I'll acknowledge them virtually. Fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by conveying warm greetings from the African Development Bank and express joy in welcoming you all to this event, hosted in partnership with the Climate Investment Funds, on the actualization of the ideals of the Kenya Green Investment Bank as an instrument of the Kenyan climate resilient and energy transition pathway. Today's session is particularly topical and relates on the development of innovative climate solutions, such as national green banks, to improve local access to green finance at scale and accelerate Africa's transition towards a low-carbon development pathway. Our continent is the most vulnerable to climate change, to the effects of climate change, and is home to 9 out of 10 of the most vulnerable nations in the world. The scale of the resources needed to deliver climate action and the region's sustainable growth is huge. Indeed, according to the Climate Policy Initiative 2022, 2.8 trillion, it's not a mistake, 2.8 trillion is required by 2030 to implement Africa's climate commitments based on the recently submitted nationally determined contributions of 51 countries on the continent. This translates to about $277 billion per year through 2030. And this is almost, the figure of 277 billion is almost 10 times what Africa was able to command in the year 2019-2020, which was $29.5 billion. Like other parts of Africa, Kenya faces significant deficit in climate finance, based on what I've just said. And this is evidenced by the fact that in 2018, Kenya accounted for only $2.4 billion of climate finance, which is approximately a third of what it requires. Hence, at the African Development Bank, we view this lack of access to climate finance as one of the biggest impediments to comprehensively addressing climate change in our client regional member countries. We have therefore consistently sought to bridge the gap in climate finance on the continent through a number of measures. The first is the target to double climate finance on the continent to $25 billion. And this we've tried to do by allocating at least 40% of our investments as climate finance on an annual basis. And I'm pleased to say that last year, we actually realized 45%, of which 63% was adaptation finance. That was the first of the initiatives. The second was the measures that we have ingrained in our 2021 to 2030 climate change and green growth policy framework to increase Africa's access to global climate finance to 10% from the current 4.5% by 2030. And third is the creation of what we call AAAP, Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, which together with GCA, we hope to mobilize an additional $12.5 billion for climate adaptation. And fourth is last year's establishment of the Climate Action Window, with a target of raising up to $13 billion as a source of dedicated climate finance for Africa's 37 most climate change vulnerable countries. And fifth, as testimony of our efforts, is our leadership in advocating for the rechanneling of $100 billion of special drawing rights, which could be leveraged 3 to 4 times, and the proceeds of accruing therefrom used for climate action. You'll be pleased to note that this last recommendation was actually adopted as part of the Africa Climate Summit declaration that ended on 6th, the day before yesterday. In championing the climate and environmental action, the bank has also identified the Green Bank model as representing a broad opportunity for Africa to turn the $250 billion climate finance gap per year into investment opportunity. This is because local public or private banks have the capacity to bridge the national climate and environmental finance gap without burdening sovereign debt by facilitating access to international and international and domestic financial resources, thereby attracting private capital to green projects. To further this notion, in 2021, in partnership with the Climate Investment Funds, we launched the first scoping study on potential for a green bank or national climate change funds to support climate investment and national goals in Africa. And this eventually led to the launch of the Africa Green Banks Initiative at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in association with our partners, the Climate Investment Funds, Canada Climate Action Africa, Amundi, and the Green Bank Network. The Green Banks Initiative seeks to develop an ecosystem of local and or regional green finance facilities to promote climate resilient and eco-friendly growth on the continent. The first beneficiaries of the Africa Green Banks Initiative technical assistance pilot phase are Benin and Cote d'Ivoire through their national investment arms, CDC, I won't try to read the French, in Benin and BNI in Cote d'Ivoire. Meanwhile, according to its NDC, Kenya needs about 17.7 billion to implement green and basically mitigation projects by 2030. Accordingly, the National Treasury and the Economic Planning State Department, through the National Treasury and Economic Planning State Department, the government of Kenya has endorsed the realization of the concept of green banking, which can be implemented by establishing a standalone institution, or which you can call the Kenya Green Investment Bank, or through hosting a green finance facility in an existing bank. The idea being that the entity will identify and prioritize investments that support a just, low transition, and sustainable development pathway. With the implementation of the concept of green banking, the government of Kenya will bolster its green credentials and sustain regional leadership in this regard. The government of Kenya can count on the unwavering support of the African Development Bank in this journey. On this note, I wish you progressive deliberations on this important subject, and thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kariuki, for those, I think, inspiring and very clear words, giving us a great overview of the concept of green banking and the work that's happening here in Kenya and through our own initiatives. Now, I'm looking to Audrey for confirmation, but the Principal Secretary is from the Treasury. Is he arriving? No. So we'll move now to our virtual panel. Dr. Kariuki, I know you have a plane to catch, and therefore I'm happy to excuse you. Thank you very much. Yes, you will. Yes, but don't worry, we will celebrate for you. So thank you very much indeed. Now, for the rest of the presentation today, we have a virtual panel. So I'm very pleased to announce that we're going to be joined by, and let me just get my screen up again. We're going to be joined by Luis Tinio, who is the acting CEO for the Climate Investment Funds. Sorry, we've got a bit of an echo here. Has that gone off? Yes, okay, that's very disconcerting to hear yourself speaking like that. Secondly, Gioconda Ortego-Alari from Canada, from the Canadian Canada Climate Action Expert Deployment Mechanism. And thirdly, Maurice Lokosu, who is a managing director from CDC Benin, that's Caisse de dépôt et consignement in Benin. So I'm hoping that the tech is going to work, and that I'm very pleased to welcome Luis to join us to make an intervention. And I know it's very early in the morning for Luis. I believe it's 5 o'clock in the US. So Luis, we'll go carefully. We'll go gently with you.
Thank you, Gareth, and good afternoon